My ex-boyfriend spread lies that I was stalking him to get a restraining order, so I proved he was actually stalking me and got him arrested instead. Some people think they can weaponize the legal system to continue abusing their ex-partners, but courts don't appreciate being manipulated by liars. My ex-boyfriend Tyler thought he could flip the script on our relationship by claiming I was stalking him and getting a restraining order to harass me legally. What he didn't know was that I'd been documenting his actual stalking behavior for months, and that his court hearing would be the perfect venue to expose him as the real predator while getting him arrested for perjury and harassment. I'm Amanda Foster, 28, and until 6 months ago, I was in what I thought was a normal relationship with Tyler Brooks, a 31-year-old marketing coordinator who seemed charming and attentive when we first started dating. We met through mutual friends at a barbecue last summer, and Tyler was everything I thought I wanted: funny, successful, and seemingly devoted to making our relationship work. For the first few months, Tyler was the perfect boyfriend. He remembered small details about my life, sent thoughtful text messages throughout the day, and always seemed eager to spend time together. He'd bring me coffee at work, surprise me with my favorite takeout, and plan romantic dates that showed he was paying attention to my interests. But what I initially interpreted as devotion gradually revealed itself as possessive control that made me increasingly uncomfortable. Tyler wanted to know where I was at all times, who I was with, and what we were talking about. He'd show up unexpectedly at my workplace, my gym, and social events, always with some excuse about being in the neighborhood or wanting to surprise me. When I tried to maintain some independence by having girls' nights or pursuing my own hobbies, Tyler would become moody and accusatory, suggesting that I was prioritizing other people over our relationship or that I was being secretive about my activities. "Amanda, I just don't understand why you need to go out with your friends when we could be spending time together," he'd say with hurt in his voice. "Are you getting bored with me? Am I not enough for you anymore?" The guilt trips were constant and exhausting. Tyler had a way of making his possessive behavior seem like evidence of how much he loved me, while making my desire for independence seem like a rejection of his feelings. But the real red flags emerged when I discovered that Tyler had been tracking my location without my knowledge. I noticed that he always seemed to know exactly where I'd been, even when I hadn't told him my plans. He'd make casual comments about places I'd visited or people I'd seen, claiming he'd just happened to notice my car or had heard from someone about my activities. When I checked my phone settings, I discovered that Tyler had installed a tracking app during one of our dates when I'd left my phone unattended. He'd been monitoring my location 24/7 for weeks without my knowledge or consent. "Tyler, you've been tracking my phone without permission," I confronted him. "That's completely inappropriate and violates my privacy." "Amanda, I was just worried about your safety," he replied defensively. "With all the crime in the city, I wanted to make sure you were okay when you were out alone." "That's not your decision to make. You had no right to track my location without asking." "I thought you'd be happy that someone cares enough to look out for you," Tyler said, turning himself into the victim. "Most girlfriends would appreciate having a boyfriend who's concerned about their well-being." That's when I realized that Tyler's devotion was actually obsessive control, and that his caring behavior was really stalking disguised as romance. I decided to end the relationship immediately. "Tyler, this isn't working for me," I told him during a conversation at his apartment. "The tracking, the possessiveness, the constant need to know where I am, it's not healthy. I think we should break up and take some time apart." Tyler's reaction was immediate and frightening. His fake hurt expression transformed into rage, and he started yelling about how ungrateful I was and how no one would ever love me the way he did. "You're making a huge mistake, Amanda," he said with cold anger. "I've done everything for you, and this is how you repay me? You'll regret this decision." I left Tyler's apartment that night feeling relieved, but also concerned about his threatening tone and the intensity of his reaction to our breakup. Unfortunately, my concerns were completely justified. Tyler's stalking behavior escalated dramatically after our breakup. Instead of respecting my decision and moving on, he began a campaign of harassment and surveillance that made my life miserable for months. He would drive by my apartment at all hours, park across the street from my workplace, and follow me to grocery stores, restaurants, and social events. Tyler would stay just far enough away to claim he wasn't bothering me, but close enough to make sure I knew he was watching. The text messages started immediately after our breakup and continued relentlessly, despite my request for him to stop contacting me. Tyler would send dozens of messages per day, alternating between professions of love, angry accusations, and threats about what would happen if I didn't give him another chance. "Amanda, "You're being irrational," he'd text. "We had something special, and you're throwing it away over nothing. I know you'll realize your mistake and come back to me." When I blocked his number, Tyler started contacting me from different phones, email addresses, and social media accounts. He'd create fake profiles to get around my blocks and continue sending unwanted messages. But Tyler's most disturbing behavior was his campaign to isolate me from friends and family by spreading lies about our relationship and my mental state. He contacted my friends claiming that I was having a breakdown and needed intervention to prevent me from making bad decisions. He told my coworkers that I was unstable and might need professional help dealing with our breakup. Tyler even called my parents, claiming that he was worried about Amanda's well-being and suggesting that I was acting erratically and might be having mental health issues that required family support. "Mr. and Mrs. Foster, I'm concerned about Amanda," Tyler told my parents during a phone call I later learned about. "She's been making some questionable decisions lately, and I think she might be struggling with depression or anxiety. As someone who cares about her, I thought you should know." Tyler was systematically trying to make everyone in my life believe that I was mentally unstable and that his continued contact was motivated by genuine concern rather than obsessive stalking. I started documenting everything. I kept screenshots of all Tyler's messages, recorded the times and locations where I'd seen him following me, and gathered evidence of his attempts to interfere with my relationships and employment. But Tyler was smart about his stalking behavior. He was careful to avoid direct threats, or obviously illegal activities, that would immediately result in police intervention. Instead, he maintained a pattern of behavior that was clearly harassment, but could be explained away as concern for an ex-girlfriend if questioned. When I finally decided to file a police report about Tyler's stalking, the response was disappointing, but not surprising. "Ma'am, unless he's threatened you directly or violated a restraining order, there's not much we can do about an ex-boyfriend trying to contact you," the officer explained. "You might want to consider filing for a restraining order if you feel genuinely threatened." I began the process of requesting a restraining order against Tyler, gathering all my evidence of his stalking behavior, and preparing to present my case to a judge. But Tyler apparently learned about my restraining order petition before the hearing date, and he decided to take preemptive action that would flip the narrative completely. 2 days before my scheduled court hearing, I received notice that Tyler had filed his own restraining order petition against me, claiming that I was the one stalking him. According to Tyler's petition, I had been obsessively contacting him since our breakup, following him to various locations, and harassing his friends and family with false accusations about our relationship. Tyler claimed that I was unable to accept the end of our relationship and was exhibiting increasingly concerning behavior that made him fear for his safety and well-being. His petition was filled with fabricated incidents where he claimed I had shown up at his workplace, sent threatening messages, and even vandalized his car. Every single allegation was completely false, but Tyler had crafted his lies carefully to mirror the actual stalking behavior he'd been perpetrating against me. Tyler was trying to weaponize the restraining order process to continue harassing me, while positioning himself as the victim of stalking, rather than the perpetrator. The court scheduled a hearing where both our petitions would be considered simultaneously, essentially creating a he said, she said situation where the judge would have to determine which of us was telling the truth about who was stalking whom. But Tyler had made a crucial mistake in his strategy to flip the narrative. His fake petition contained specific allegations about incidents that I could prove had never happened, using evidence that would expose him as a liar and perjurer. Tyler claimed that I had followed him to his workplace and caused a scene on a Tuesday afternoon 3 weeks earlier. But I had been in a work meeting with 12 colleagues at the exact time Tyler claimed this incident occurred, and I had emails and calendar entries to prove it. He alleged that I had sent threatening text messages from multiple phone numbers on specific dates when I could prove I was either out of town or had phone records showing no outgoing messages. Most damaging was Tyler's claim that I had vandalized his car by keying the paint on a Sunday evening when I had actually been at my parents' house for dinner, with multiple family members who could testify to my whereabouts. Tyler had been so focused on creating mirror accusations that he'd failed to ensure his lies were consistent with verifiable facts about my activities and location. I spent the week before our court hearing gathering evidence that would not only prove my case against Tyler, but also demonstrate that he had committed perjury by filing false allegations under oath. I had documentation showing my actual whereabouts during every incident Tyler claimed, witness statements from colleagues and family members, and phone records proving that his allegations about my contact attempts were fabricated. But most importantly, I had evidence that Tyler was continuing his stalking behavior, even while claiming to be the victim of my supposed harassment. During the time period when Tyler was supposedly afraid of me and seeking legal protection, he had actually escalated his surveillance and attempts to contact me. I had security camera footage showing him parked outside my apartment, witnesses who'd seen him following me, and continued text messages from fake accounts that I could trace back to him. Tyler was asking the court to protect him from someone he was actively stalking, which demonstrated both his dishonesty and his continued criminal behavior. The court hearing was scheduled for a Friday morning in front of Judge Patricia Martinez, who had a reputation for taking domestic violence and stalking cases seriously. I arrived early with my attorney, Marcus Chen, who specialized in harassment and stalking cases. We had organized all our evidence into a comprehensive presentation that would tell the complete story of Tyler's stalking behavior and expose his false counter-allegations. Tyler arrived with his own attorney and seemed confident about his chances of convincing the judge that I was the real stalker in our situation. Judge Martinez began by reviewing both petitions and explaining that she would hear testimony from both parties before making determinations about which, if any, restraining orders should be granted. Tyler testified first, presenting his version of events where I was the obsessive ex-girlfriend who couldn't accept our breakup and had been harassing him for months. He was articulate and convincing, describing specific incidents where he claimed I had stalked and threatened him. Tyler even managed to produce a few fake text messages that he claimed I had sent, though I knew they were fabricated. Your Honor, I've tried to be patient and understanding because I know breakups can be difficult, Tyler said with fake sincerity. But Amanda's behavior has become increasingly concerning, and I genuinely fear for my safety. Tyler's performance was impressive, and I could see why he thought his strategy might work. He came across as a reasonable man who was reluctantly seeking legal protection from an unstable ex-girlfriend. But Tyler's testimony contained the same factual errors that had been in his written petition, and I was ready to expose every single lie. When it was my turn to testify, I presented my evidence systematically, starting with Tyler's actual stalking behavior, and then moving to proof that his counter-allegations were false. I showed the judge screenshots of Tyler's hundreds of unwanted text messages, photos of him parked outside my apartment, and witness statements from people who'd seen him following me to various locations. Your Honor, Mr. Brooks has been stalking me continuously since our breakup 6 months ago, I testified. He installed tracking software on my phone without permission, follows me to work and social events, and has sent over 300 unwanted messages despite my repeated requests for no contact. Then, I presented the evidence that Tyler's allegations against me were fabricated lies. Mr. Brooks claims that I followed him to his workplace on Tuesday, March 15th at 3 p.m., I said, showing calendar entries and email records. But I was in a staff meeting with 12 colleagues at that exact time, and I have documentation to prove it. I went through each of Tyler's false allegations systematically, providing proof that I had been somewhere else during every incident he claimed, with witnesses and documentation that made his lies impossible to maintain. But the most damaging evidence was the security footage showing Tyler stalking me during the same time period when he was claiming to be afraid of my supposed harassment. Your Honor, this video was taken last Tuesday evening, 3 days ago, I said, showing footage of Tyler sitting in his car outside my apartment building. Mr. Brooks is asking this court to protect him from me while he's actively stalking me and documenting my activities. Judge Martinez was clearly angry as she reviewed the evidence. Tyler's attorney looked increasingly uncomfortable as it became obvious that his client had fabricated his entire case. Mr. Brooks, Judge Martinez said sternly, you've sworn under oath that Ms. Foster has been stalking you, but the evidence clearly shows that you've been stalking her. Do you understand that perjury is a criminal offense? Tyler tried to claim that there had been misunderstandings and that some of his allegations might have been confused due to the stress of the situation. But Judge Martinez wasn't buying his backtracking. Mr. Brooks, these aren't misunderstandings. These are specific false allegations made under oath in an attempt to manipulate this court. Judge Martinez granted my restraining order against Tyler immediately and dismissed his false petition against me. But she also did something I hadn't expected. She ordered Tyler's immediate arrest for perjury. Mr. Brooks, you've committed perjury by making false statements under oath in an attempt to weaponize the restraining order process, Judge Martinez announced. Court security will place you under arrest immediately. Tyler was handcuffed right there in the courtroom and led away by court officers while his attorney scrambled to discuss bail arrangements. The criminal charges against Tyler expanded beyond just perjury when prosecutors reviewed all the evidence I'd gathered about his stalking behavior. Tyler was charged with stalking, harassment, cyberstalking, illegal surveillance, and perjury, multiple felonies that could result in several years in prison. But the most satisfying consequence was that Tyler's arrest and the evidence presented in court became part of the public record, exposing his behavior to everyone in our professional and social circles. Tyler's employer learned about his arrest and criminal charges when the case was reported in the local news. His company fired him immediately due to the criminal charges and the evidence that he'd been stalking an ex-girlfriend while working. Tyler's friends and family members, who'd believed his lies about my supposed mental instability, learned the truth about his stalking behavior and his attempt to manipulate the court system. The criminal case resulted in Tyler pleading guilty to all charges to avoid a longer sentence at trial. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison and 5 years of probation, with requirements to attend counseling and have no contact with me. The restraining order was made permanent, and Tyler was required to pay restitution for my legal fees and the costs associated with his stalking behavior. But perhaps the most important consequence was that Tyler's case became an example used by law enforcement and domestic violence advocates to train officers about how abusers try to weaponize the legal system against their victims. Tyler's strategy of filing false stalking allegations to continue harassing me was apparently a common tactic used by abusive ex-partners, and my case helped develop better procedures for identifying and prosecuting this type of legal manipulation. Some people have suggested that I was too harsh in pursuing criminal charges against Tyler instead of just being satisfied with getting the restraining order and ending his stalking behavior. But Tyler had systematically terrorized me for months, violated my privacy with illegal tracking, and then tried to use the court system to continue his harassment while positioning himself as the victim. Tyler's false allegations could have resulted in me being legally prohibited from going to places where he might be present, essentially allowing him to control my movements and activities through fraudulent legal restrictions. By lying under oath and filing false criminal allegations, Tyler had committed serious crimes that deserved serious consequences. The prosecution also sent a clear message that the court system won't tolerate being manipulated by abusers who try to weaponize restraining orders against their victims. Tyler learned that stalking behavior has consequences that escalate when you try to use the legal system to continue your harassment, and that some victims are too prepared and too determined to be successfully manipulated through false allegations. He also learned that perjury is a serious crime with serious consequences, especially when it's used to try to harm innocent people through legal manipulation. The man who thought he could flip the script and make me look like the stalker ended up exposed as the real predator and sentenced to 2 years in prison. Meanwhile, I'm living peacefully without harassment, surveillance, or unwanted contact, finally free from the person who thought he owned me and could control my life indefinitely. Tyler's stalking campaign lasted 6 months. His prison sentence will last 2 years, and his criminal record will last forever. I think the justice system worked exactly as it should when someone tries to abuse legal processes to continue victimizing their ex-partners. Sometimes the best way to stop an abuser is to document everything, gather evidence, and make sure they face consequences, not just for their original crimes, but also for their attempts to manipulate the system. Tyler got exactly what he deserved: prison time and a permanent record as the stalker he really was. And I got what I deserved: protection, justice, and the satisfaction of watching someone who tried to weaponize the courts against me get arrested in those same courts for his crimes. The ex-boyfriend who tried to make me look like the stalker ended up getting arrested for actually being one. That's what I call perfect justice.